Hi everyone, my name is Ronen Spirer. I am Director for Communication Service Provider Solutions Marketing here at Fortinet. And as you will notice from my accent, I am not an American. In fact, I'm joining you from France, but I am delighted to be able to virtually participate in this North American event. And what I would like to do is really to talk to you about how this Fortinet is uniquely positioned to enable, your growth and competitiveness um, in the managed security services market. And I think the first thing we would want to understand are what are the requirements? What are the requirements that actually would make theoretically a managed security service provider successful in that market? So let's have a bit of a dive into that market and into the MSSP customers requirements. If we just look at numbers, and here I've gathered some numbers from different researchers done internally by Fortinet, but also externally worldwide, we can understand several things. First of all, the cybersecurity in general market is growing, and it's growing and in fact the growth rate is increasing. So here we see some numbers where from 2020 to 2023, we expect something around 11% growth in the overall cybersecurity market. The interesting thing about it is if you look at the average MSSP revenues, they're growing faster than the cybersecurity market, right? So in fact, MSSPs are taking market share of the overall cybersecurity market. Now, their share in that market is growing year on year. And that, of course, means that, you know, providing managed security services, is a great opportunity because this is a growing market, and it's a growing market where MSSPs are capable until now to increase their market share, right? To increase their revenues. What we're also seeing is that, you know, the margins that we're seeing, and this is something what we've done internally in EMEA, the research is, we looked at the typical gross margin of, resellers, integrators compared to, similar companies, but that also provide managed services, managed security services. And there's a big difference. We can say in general that resale and integration services revenues or margins, are decreasing, right? While managed services, managed security services margins are increasing. So, why is that? Why is all of that is happening? Is because, of course, enterprises are going through transformation. They want to focus on their own business, and they want to consume more and more, security services from MSSPs, from service providers, right? And what we've done is we've embarked with Omdia on a very large global survey, which is not even out yet. So you are seeing the first glimpse of some of the draft results that we are getting, and I will share this with you. So we see here, for example, for that result, we see that there's a very significant intention for for enterprises to actually continue their reliance and consumption of managed security services, right? An average of 50% to an average of 77% by the end of 21. These are huge numbers, right? And these are global trend. This is worldwide research. So what does it mean? It means that this is a very attractive market for any type of MSSP, whether they're greenfields, incumbents, advanced, however we would want to categorize it. This is a very interesting market, a growth-driven market for MSSP. But it also means that more and more companies, for example, resellers or integrators, would want to go into that space, which will increase the MSSPs, will increase competition. And in an increased and competitive environment, what we need to make sure is if you want to be successful, if an MSSP wants to be successful, is that it has the visibility and the capabilities to actually evolve to meet the competition, to create competitive barriers, and also meet the different and evolving requirements of its enterprise customers. Right. So let's try and figure out again, what are the major requirements and the trends that we're seeing coming from the enterprise side. And when I say enterprise, of course, I mean, large enterprises, medium and small, and small to medium businesses as well. I categorize all of them under enterprise right now. So what are the requirements? What are the trends? What are they looking for in MSSPs? And again, sharing some information with the yet published survey. So we went out to to enterprises, and you see we went out to over 800 enterprises worldwide, and we asked them, what are the drivers that will impact the consumption of your managed security services? And and you can see the results here, and they're not surprising. For example, the two biggest one, which are really so strongly related, and therefore I consider them as one real factor. That's what we're seeing from the pandemic, from the COVID pandemic, right? So increase in mobility and remote working, which is immediately tied to increased usage of collaboration and communication tools, right? That's a big change. We're seeing the fact that they want to consolidate security technologies and platforms, right? They're moving to the cloud, which has been going for many years. They want to deploy new technologies such as IoT and so on and so forth. So if I try to actually take these first insight from enterprises and try to simplify that into categories, this is what I get, right? They want MSSPs, they would want to consume MSSPs, consume managed security services from MSSPs that have a wide range of managed security services, so they can meet cloud requirements, they can meet IoT requirements, they can meet remote working, and so on and so forth. They need agility. Everything that happened with the pandemic happened unexpectedly, and changes had to be done very quickly. And that is only, this is something we've seen and something that is going to impact that for the long run. And enterprises understand that they need agility internally and externally. So if they're going to use MSSPs, the ability of an MSSP to be agile and accompany them in the long run, whatever happens, whatever the different changes that are taking place in their environment, is extremely important. And then they want to have MSSPs that go beyond just, okay, I'm providing you a service. I'm providing you now, for example, a managed firewall service, or I'm providing you a monitoring service, and so on and so forth. They want a service, they want an MSSP that can actually, deal with the overall changes in threats and security landscape, right? They want an MSSP that can provide threat intelligence and security operations expertise, and be able to mitigate and react to what's actually happens to their customers, to them, to themselves, now, but also in the future. They want somebody who would be able to consult them, to tell them these are the these are the trend. This is what you can expect. This is what you should look for, and this is how you can deal with these problems. So this is what I get from this first slide. And if you have that, that for me would constitute the first batch of competitive and growth engines. This is what you would need as an MSSP in order to create your competitive barriers and deliver growth engines for your growth engine as revenue generating services to your enterprise customer. So that's good, but there has to be something more, right? So we went out and asked some more questions, right? So we asked them, what are the key drivers for selecting MSSPs? There are competition out there. There are multiple MSSPs that, for example, would be able to provide these type of services. But what would be additional key selecting drivers? And again, there are different answers. And really, we should look at the red part on the right to see which one are the most significant. And we won't go over all of them, but what we can see is that really they are repeating what we mentioned so far. So the wide range of managed security services. For example, we see that the completeness of current service offering counts for about very 28% see that as a strong driver. So it's there. Agility for MSSP to be able to meet the different requirements in the changing environment. Threat intelligence, security operation, the ability to do one-off, customized services to go beyond just a single or a set of fixed services. But what is added here is pricing. So you see the pricing, that's the fourth item, is about 27 degrees, 27% is considered as a strong driver. But of course, when here our enterprise responded say pricing, they don't mean the cheapest priced, right? The lowest possible price. They really mean pricing that has the flexibility on how can I consume my services, right? How can I pay for my services? Is there an OPEX component to it? Is it just CapEx? Is it a mix, a hybrid? How do I pay? Do I consume based on usage or any other metrics and so on? How flexible are you in actually being able to adopt your pricing and your consumption model to what I need as a business? Okay. So now we had another aspect in the list of, what would make quote unquote a perfect MSSP for an enterprise. And then we asked some more questions. One of them was, what is the importance of the vendors or the brands that an MSSP uses to deliver services for you, Mr. Customer, to consider in the MSSP choosing process, selection process, right? And it's very interesting. We can see that the majority thinks that it's somewhat important or very important, and there's also a dependency on what type of service is delivered. So there are services where the vendor providing the technology behind that service is very important, and there are the services where it's not that important. Um, and it's funny because when you look at the right side, you see that the greatest important to brands behind the technology, behind the service, are giving to what is considered to be relatively traditional and long running managed security services such as security monitoring and security device management. While there are other more advanced type of security where the vendor, it's not that important, and we can tie that to the fact that as we provide more and more advanced type of services, the expertise and the value add that the MSSP contribute grows in that part. So it's less the vendor and the brand which is behind that service, it's the capabilities that the MSSP brings to bear which are important. But if I go back to my set of criteria, what do I learn from here? Well, I have my previous sets of criteria. What I get here is, strong security brand will only help. So if you're an MSSP and you want to provide managed security services and win market share and revenue, right? In some cases, in all cases, having strong security brands is a plus. It wouldn't hurt you. It's a plus. And in some cases, mostly with large enterprises, where it's more important, having strong security brands behind your services will be important to your ability to attract customers. So we have that list. And if we take that list and even try to simplify it further, what we can say is that, what are the drivers that are pushing MSSP evolution and growth and competitiveness are really the range of services that it can provide, how agile it can provide them, and what's the value that it provides beyond the services, beyond the service. And that will really decide an impact and have a very significant impact on the customer. It's customer based, how many new customers and type of customers you will be able to attract, the revenue we will be able to generate, and the margin he will be able to generate. Because as we move up a scale between just a service and providing value, then of course all these change. I can generate more revenue and I can generate more margin from these revenues. So how do I enable this growth? How do I make sure that I am meeting range, agility, and value to generate more, more revenue, more margin, increase my customer base? So, I think there are two ways to look at it that has to happen in parallel. So, MSSP need to evolve in two axes, an horizontal axis and a vertical axis. And the horizontal growth or axis, it's all about range. So the range of services that I am as an MSSP capable of delivering today and tomorrow to my customers, right? That is a relatively quantitative type of growth. It just, my objective here is to have as many as possible services, right? And because I have this approach, which is extremely important because eventually customers want to and need to consume these services, they're very driven on, how I can price them, how can I generate revenue out of them, and how fast do I need to go out to the market, okay? And because it's purely services which are based on technology and relatively little value associated coming from the MSSP, then the margin and the revenue that you can get from it are relatively limited, and they're relatively easy to leave and replace, right? If you are providing what is today a basic managed services like a managed firewall solution, there are many others who can provide the same type of solution, right? Because what you add in as an MSSP into that service is relatively limited if you are just talking about that service. So many others can actually duplicate that and maybe offer that at a better price or better SLA and so on and so forth, right? But it's very important that we have this horizontal growth evolving as new technologies come about, as new needs come from the enterprise, as new attack surfaces and attack vectors are out there. The other axis for growth is the vertical one, and this is all about value, right? So here it's not the service which count, it's not the quantity of services, it's really the quality. It's what is the value that I provide. Okay, not what is the service that I provide, but what is the value that I provide. And normally, this is something that I can provide on top of services. So services are, if you would want, this foundational layer that I can address the market. And the value, it's my additional value, my expertise, my know-how, my resources, that are unique to me, that will determine the value. So it's very value driven, and because it's very value driven, it's very difficult to duplicate. It's very costly to duplicate. Therefore, I can generate margins, high margins, and it's when I have my customers using my value, I'm using the value that I provide on top of the services, then it's hard to leave me. It's hard to replace me, right? So I have this stickiness effect and loyalty effect and very little churn. And both of these need to happen in parallel. And when they do when they do happen in parallel because they're codependent, then you have that growing capability to be agile, to meet what is happening outside of your control, right? What's happening in your own environment, but what's happening to your customers and your customer environment. Because you have that range that you can deploy different services and meet different attacks and needs and attack surfaces. Okay. But you have that value, an additional value that you can adapt to these new services to provide what enterprise require from you, which is, the service is great, but help me deal with that new situation. Help me, tell me what to do. Help me to be compliant when things change, and so on and so forth. Right? Now, another way to look at that is, graphically, it's these two axes, right? So we have the horizontal growth and the vertical growth. And if we try to depict that, so we can go the horizontal growth, we can grow in the type of services, and we would, use service A all the way to service N+1, and we extend our service range. And The value-added services are really, you know, value-oriented services are all the batch of expertise and services that go, across these services. Things like, visibility, correlation, analytics, forensic, recovery, operations, and so on, consultancy, compliancy. These type of services go beyond the actual managed firewall service or a web application a firewall service or a secure email service, and they provide that value that customers are really looking for. And of course, there is dependency between them. The value-oriented services cannot exist without the knowledge and the information provided by the service layer. And of course, it has to be mutual, because if I really want to be effective and I want to have all that in a very automated way, I need to be able to close the loop back to the service layer. For example, with um, you know um, automated um, recovery and control on what's happening in the network itself. And the value that I give to my customers in MSSP is the total of all of them. It's the service plus that value-oriented services, right? And as I become more and more mature in the range of services that I provide to my customers, then the value-oriented services part actually grows in importance, therefore in its ability to serve as a competitive barrier and revenue generating factor. And this is, this is really is the growth potential. This is the growth potential for me as an MSSP in what is becoming an extremely competitive market. Um, so a combination of original growth, service growth, but also vertical growth, value growth, right? Now, Fortinet has the Fortinet Security Fabric. And the Fortinet Security Fabric is the platform that actually enables MSSP to deliver what we've just discussed and meet all these different requirements that we've seen coming from the market itself and the fact that it's becoming more and more competitive, but also from the enterprises and what they're looking for when they choose for the long-term strategic MSSPs, right? Why is that? Because first of all, it's broad. It provides that horizontal range of services that are categorized in the case of the Fortinet Security Fabric under zero trust access, adaptive cloud security, and security-driven networking. So you have built-in, platform that allow you very natively to grow and expand that horizontal X and to actually expand the type of services and the quantity of services that you are delivering to your customers very easily, very natively, which means that you can do it very quickly, okay? Because they are pre-integrated. They are pre-integrating between themselves, right? They share threat intelligence and they reduce any type of management, integration, customization efforts. Again, a great contribution to your ability to be agile, but also to better deal with threats and new attack surfaces and changing environments for your customers in your customers' environments. And it's automated, right? And automation is key in order to be able to not only provide and be agile, but also meet some of the new value-added services such as managed detection and response and so on. And that is all given natively and provided natively by the Fortinet Security Fabric. So the Fortinet Security Fabric is an ideal platform for MSSPs to build their services and value on. And that is true for greenfields that only want to come in and say, this is a very interesting market. I want to build myself. I want to start small. And I want to build myself. They can start with the Fortinet Security Fabric and then gradually, add in some of these components natively to provide that growth both in, the service range, but also in the value. And of course, the same goes with established MSSP, incumbent MSSP, and any other type of MSSP. And if we try to translate the Fortinet security fabric into the same graphical representation of the growth engines that an MSSP need to watch or need to nourish, then we're seeing that horizontal growth with security-driven networking, zero trust access, and adaptive cloud services. And we see that value-added, value-oriented growth and engines with things like the FortiGuard threat intelligence, AI-driven security operation, and the fact that we have an open ecosystem, the largest security ecosystem out there, that allows you to add in and integrate and provide value for solutions that go beyond what natively is offered by the Fortinet security fabric. That's the service N+1 that you see. So even for solutions which are not Fortinet solutions, we provide the ability for integration and agility. So this is very unique to Fortinet. And if we try to go back to, look back at the MSSP wish list that enterprises have shown us from what I've shared with you, and what Fortinet enables MSSP to deliver. So, MSSP want enterprises want MSSPs with a wide range of security services, complete range of security services. Fortinet Security Fabric provides the widest range of security technology out there. Point. They want agility from their MSSP. The fact that the Fortinet Security Fabric is already pre-integrated, automated, and provides that open ecosystem in that ecosystem environment of hundreds of partners, that enables great service agility and go-to-market. They want more than just a set of services, right? They want value on top of the services. They want you to be able to provide threat intelligence, security operation, managed detection and report, consultancy, and that is all part of the Fortinet security fabric, right? We have integrated threat intelligence with FortiLabs, and we have security operation with AI-driven security operations. It's part of the Fortinet security fabric and natively integrated with the service layer. They want agility also and flexibility in how they consume the services that you provide to them, Mr. MSSP. Well, we have specific MSSP tailored consumption and pricing, which are not available to any other enterprise, to enable our MSSP partners to do exactly that, to meet the business flexibility that their enterprise customer would require. And then last but not least, they want security brand. They want recognized strong security brand to be the technology behind the services that you, Mr. MSSP, are delivering to us. Well, needless to say that, Fortinet is the #1 security vendor worldwide, and therefore you can very easily be proud and say, yes, I am driven, I am empowered by Fortinet security, and I am empowered by Fortinet security fabric services and technology. So with that, I want to thank you. I hope you found this important, and I hope that you are able to see the value that Fortinet can bring to your success and growth in a very changing, a very dynamic managed security services market. Thank you very much.